Our movement is about replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment with a new government controlled by you, the American people. The Washington establishment and the financial and media corporations that fund it exist for only one reason: to protect and enrich itself. The establishment has trillions of dollars at stake in this election. For those who control the levers of power in Washington and for the global special interest, they partner with these people that don't have your good in mind. Our campaign represents a true existential threat like they haven't seen before. This is not simply another 4-year election. This is a crossroads in the history of our civilization that will determine whether or not we, the people, reclaim control over our government. The political establishment that is trying to stop us is the same group responsible for our disastrous trade deals, massive illegal immigration, and economic and foreign policies that have bled our country dry. The political establishment has brought about the destruction of our factories and our jobs as they flee to Mexico, China, and other countries all around the world. It's a global power structure that is responsible for the economic decisions that have robbed our working class, stripped our country of its wealth, and put that money into the pockets of a handful of large corporations and political entities. This is a struggle for the survival of our nation, and this will be our last chance to save it. This election will determine whether we're a free nation or whether we have only the illusion of democracy, but are in fact controlled by a small handful of global special interests rigging the system, and our system is rigged. This is reality. You know it, they know it, I know it, and pretty much the whole world knows it. The Clinton machine is at the center of this power structure. We've seen this firsthand in the WikiLeaks documents, in which Hillary Clinton meets in secret with international banks to plot the destruction of U.S. sovereignty in order to enrich these global financial powers, her special interest friends, and her donors. Honestly, she should be locked up. The most powerful weapon deployed by the Clintons is the corporate media, the press. Let's be clear on one thing. The corporate media in our country is no longer involved in journalism. They're a political special interest, no different than any lobbyist or other financial entity with a total political agenda, and the agenda is not for you, it's for themselves. Anyone who challenges their control is deemed a sexist, a racist, a xenophobe. They will lie, and then again, they will do worse than that. They will do whatever is necessary. The Clintons are criminals, remember that. This is well documented. And the establishment that protects them has engaged in a massive cover-up of widespread criminal activity at the State Department and the Clinton Foundation in order to keep the Clintons in power. They knew they would throw every lie they could at me and my family and my loved ones. They knew they would stop at nothing to try to stop me. Nevertheless, I take all of these slings and arrows gladly for you. I take them for our movement so that we can have our country back. I knew this day would arrive. It's only a question of when. And I knew the American people would rise above it and vote for the future they deserve. The only thing that can stop this corrupt machine is you. The only force strong enough to save our country is us. The only people brave enough to vote out this corrupt establishment is you, the American people. Our great civilization has come upon a moment of reckoning. I didn't need to do this, folks, believe me. I built a great company, and I had a wonderful life. I could have enjoyed the fruits and benefits of years of successful business deals and businesses for myself and my family, instead of going through this absolute horror show of lies, deceptions, malicious attacks. Who would have thought? I'm doing it because this country has given me so much, and I feel so strongly that it's my turn to give back to the country that I love. I'm doing this for the people and for the movement, and we will take back this country for you, and we will make America great again.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Cold War Radio, live on our home base, WAAR. We are America Radio, your number one source for streaming political and government talk anywhere. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr., deep down in the bunker in my Smith & Wesson studio in the city of Pittsburgh. And straight out of Atlanta, let's welcome Miss Stacey Rush to the program. Good evening, Stacey Rush.
Good evening, Hutch Bailey Jr. and everybody out there listening tonight. I hope everybody is doing well, and thank you for having me.
All right. Please follow me on Spreaker, ladies and gentlemen. Like the Facebook page, facebook.com/Cold War Radio. You can catch the show on Roku, Blueberry, YouTube. There is a Cold War Radio app free in your app store. You can catch it on iHeartRadio. The email is hutch@steelcityresistance.com. The Cold War Radio patron hotline is up and running at 412-567-1460. The chat room, the lively chat room, is up on Spreaker. Go to steelcityresistance.com to catch any links. You can catch the show notes there and become a Cold War Radio patron off of the right-hand column. That's always the best thing to do. You can send mail to Hutch Bailey Jr., P.O. Box 96022, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 15226. And before I forget, right off the top of the show, ladies and gentlemen, you don't want to miss next Tuesday. Next Tuesday, Norway and Stacey and some surprise guests are going to stop in. It's our 500th episode of Cold War Radio, kind of a milestone, especially in the podcast world when so many, the vast majority of podcasts have burnout and die less than 6 episodes. Very few make it as long as we have, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you for that, because without you, there would be no show. That being said, this is a crazy time, Stacey. This is going to be an interesting episode. Things have had time to percolate and simmer, and people are showing their true colors, and I believe we are at a red line. I don't know what it means. We're going to try to figure it out tonight a little bit. But a Democrat, Stephen Cohen, Democrat Tennessee, is introducing additional impeachment articles over Charlottesville. He announced Thursday he will introduce articles of impeachment against the president based on his defense of white supremacists who participated in a deadly rally in Charlottesville, Virginia over the weekend. Now, just that being a story with lies, I mean, did you hear the president defend any white supremacists?
Not only did I not hear that, but last time I checked, it was for high crimes and misdemeanors. I'm curious as to, even if he had, would that have been an impeachable offense?
Agreed. Especially when you had the converse occurring when President Obama was in charge, with the Black Lives Matter coming to the White House and the clearly racist things that they talked about every time they opened their mouths. But I'm not even going to, validate that. It's just something I've noticed here, and we're going to go over several different occurrences. But you get the idea, and this is really sad. It really is, that our country has really lost its intelligence. I mean, when you have elected officials that are that stupid. And I mean on both sides of the aisle. I'm talking about Republicans, too.
No, I know.
When these people,
I don't know how they get elected into office. I mean, don't you think you should have to like pass a test or something? I don't know. I feel like you should have to at least understand how our government works in order to hold office. But clearly, these people don't.
No, they don't.
And is are we that stupid? Yes. And you and I know the exact cause of that: the left taking over the education system for decades, and this is what you get.
You're absolutely right, and I'm going to try to. Can I do this? I want to try to skip to something that is absolutely right up this alley, and I think I have it. Let me just double check here, but it's absolutely stunning, and I think the most important thing to take away, and maybe we'll get into some ad lib commentary on this, but this Republican Party is unacceptable. I mean, it's just absolutely good. I found it. It's absolutely unacceptable in Chicago. Stacey, this is story number 4. In Chicago, this is the land of the highest paid public school teachers in the country. So you can imagine how much money they're making. And they have the dumbest students. The people of Chicago, I got to tell you, statue of slave emancipator Abraham Lincoln burned in Chicago.
Probably because they don't even know what the word emancipator means, would be my guess. Just like they don't know that the Democrat Party is actually the party of racism and segregation and slavery. Yeah, not surprising at all.
I picked that out. It's not a story I would normally share, but it says it all. I mean, the statue of slave emancipator appears to be burned, reported NBC5 Chicago. What an absolute disgraceful act of vandalism, said Raymond Lopez, Chicago's 15th Ward. The bust of Abraham Lincoln, erected by Phil Bloomquist on August 31st, 1926, was damaged and burned near 69th and Walcott. If anyone has any information regarding this act, please contact the police or my office immediately, or I'll add, contact the school superintendent in that area and tar and feather him. The burning appears to lend credence to President Donald Trump's prediction that not only Confederate generals would come under attack, but also other famous American figures. Lincoln, however, did not own slaves and emancipated black people during the Civil War. This is a guy that, it just, I say it over and over again, and it's just not going to stick. I mean, the party, the radical Republican Party in the 1850s, the only reason that they came to be was to keep new states that were being acquired in the West from being able to be slave-owning states. And that's not talked about anywhere. You've got college educators that are bellowing the fact, it's not a fact, but they're bellowing that right-wingers are Nazis. That is impossible. This is what they don't teach. This is what politicians are too stupid to know. Is that Nazis are on the left.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I get so frustrated because I feel like it's such a mountain that we've got to climb. And there's so many, but you've always said it best. And I remember when you and Wayne came out of the gates supporting Trump, and I'm like, oh God, you two.
I remember well.
you said, and you were right on point, you got to get the closest targets first. And I think I get so overwhelmed sometimes, and I think that's part of what's going on with the left, and part of that has to do with people's idiocy. I mean, this is such a long, hard slog, and we have to understand that. And we have to understand that as much as I know some people out there absolutely adore Trump, and I appreciate their adoration, he is one man, 4 years, hopefully 8 years. We've got to keep this going because the Democrats and the left and the communists have been working on our systems for decades. And we've got a long way to go to turn it around, but we've got to hit those closest targets first.
And one of the first things is we have to get control of the language back. I mean, you've got Republican congressmen, you've got conservative journalists all saying the far right Nazis. And that's just, it's the National Socialists in Germany. They're socialist.
Yep.
They're not on the right. And for people to run away from the right because some fools don't understand the political system is absolutely, it makes me sick.
But I don't you feel like it's all by design? I mean, this thing came like a whirlwind, didn't it? It's like they all get on a conference call together. Oh, here Trump messed up. Okay, Rubio, McCain, McConnell, Graham, every pundit out there get there and slam Donald Trump and start using this language this way. And then CEOs, y'all pull out of the, of the commissions that you're working on with the president. I mean, it is so freaking by design. It is unbelievable to me.
And the reason behind it has nothing to do with race, although they want to take them, they'll do anything to get them out. And the reason they want to get them out is because of these trade talks that are happening right now. Mm-hmm. That's what it all boils down to, ladies and gentlemen, is we're going to get free trade. And I know I got some Canadian listeners. We're going to get free trade with Canada, and we're going to get free trade with Mexico, and then we're going to move overseas. And all these globalists are going to shrivel up and die. And that's why they're, including the media, especially the media.
And then you look at what's happened, too, with what they were talking about today with the, I think they said by the end of September, we're going to have growth over 3%.
Oh, yeah.
Over 3% in his first year. And if he just keeps moving along and moving forward, he was so right in the press conference when he said, the best thing that will help race relations in this country are jobs.
Oh, you're damn right.
If he keeps the economy moving along, if he keeps illegal immigration down, and they actually work on reforming our immigration system, he is going to be a success. And there is nothing they can do about it. But you are right. This is a concerted effort. And if you ever doubted it, just look at what's going on. I was so upset yesterday. I was so angry about everything, and then I started taking a look at how people seem to be reacting to what's going on. And yes, they are very loud, but I think the average American sees exactly what's going on out there.
I hope so, and I think you're right. I mean, because the reactions are so phony.
They are. They're so over the top. I mean, everybody who is honestly intellectually honest with themselves go, well, yeah, there were problems on both sides. And no, he didn't say that white supremacists were fine people, And
no 50 people on the ground and one killed and a bunch wounded is not an international incident. Okay, it sucked, all right? It sucked, fine. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't even a major incident.
And it wouldn't have been an incident had they given the permit to this crowd, had they kept the Antifa, Black Lives Matter people separate from them and let them have their stupid protest with all their racist thoughts and all that good stuff over there. Have at it. You got a couple hundred people. There are how many hundreds of million people in this country? You're a very minor subset of the population, and nothing should have happened with all of this.
And you remind me.
Instead, it's been ginned up into this international incident. And I'm telling you, just like Ferguson.
Yeah.
Ferguson is based on a complete lie. Trayvon Martin, based on a complete lie, ginned up by the mainstream media.
It's time to prosecute them. I'm telling you, there's something. If it wasn't for them, I mean, when you listen, and I know you do, when you listen to clips and compilations of montages of these people, they're clearly being told what to say, and it's outrageous. I don't see how they get out there.
Things people always notice this, and Hutch talks about this all the time, as do I. Even on Fox News, they cover the same exact stories. They might have a slightly different spin on it at Fox News, but they are covering the same exact stories. And all of them are using the same exact words.
Yes. And it's all to get Trump out. It's all to get Trump out, and it's all to derail the trade talks. Because there's trillions, it's literally trillions of dollars that are not going to go. Why do you think those CEOs got out? That was just an opportunity for them to walk out so they didn't lose their globalist money coming in. And when the media gets like this, we miss stories that my other co-host Jack brings out in the chat room, Imran Akhwan indicted today on 4 counts, including bank fraud and making false statements. Stacey and I have been covering this from the beginning, covered it 4 or 5 times, and God bless the Justice Department.
And how about the missed story of the FBI reopening the FOIA request into documents between Loretta Lynch and her phony email account and the FBI, which the FBI lied and said there were no documents. There are documents. There are documents. An email today that Jay Sekulow discussed on his podcast showing that the White House was involved with the talks as well. Not just the White House, the Washington Post. Here's the story that we're going to write. Let me know if you want any changes. We think we can keep a handle on this story for you. This is why you're not hearing about any of this in the news, because all of this implicates the Washington Post and the New York Times and the Democrat Party covering for Loretta Lynch and Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. And this is a big deal. This is not, he held up the number of pages. It had to be at least an inch, if not 2 inches thick, of emails where they were going back and forth on talking points about a meeting that was about grandkids and golf on her plane. It was 1 to 2 inches thick, all of these emails for talking points.
And ladies and gentlemen,
this is not a small deal either, but no one's covering it because Donald Trump didn't disavow Nazis loudly and quickly enough.
And I got to tell you, and most of you know this already anyway, but a free country like ours cannot survive long with a corrupt media. You can see the damage it's being done because of this. I mean, it's fake news after fake news. I mean, the Russia story was over, so they invented this one. You know, there's stories coming out that the mayor of Charlottesville is tight with Podesta and may be implicated in this himself. These are some things that they have to be dealt with an iron fist. And I'm not normally like that, but by God, we're losing it here. Somebody's got to go to prison.
We have got to be aware of it. We really do. And you guys need to educate your friends and family about it, because you don't know unless somebody brings it up and you start paying attention to it. Like all the buzzwords that you hear on every single news station over and over and over again, the same narrative over and over and over again, to help not cover some real news that is going on that's extremely important for our country, even good news like jobs, like our GDP growth. They're not covering any of that because they have an agenda, and their agenda is to keep things status quo in Washington, D.C. And that's what it is. And when you start looking, if you go to Wikipedia and you type in Google the 6 companies that control the media, and you go look at each one of them and see everything that they own that you're consuming. And now, you're getting Comcast, you're getting distribution in there as well. AT&T, Comcast, they're controlling everything that you see, hear, and listen to. I just started watching a show called, it's on Netflix, it's called Gypsy. On the first episode, they have a daughter who told her friends that she thinks she's a boy. Are you effing kidding me?
Every single show, you either have a really popular character that's homosexual, which, I mean, I don't really care, but I care about why they're doing it.
Yeah, exactly, because it is not about, because I don't either, right? I couldn't, gay is not my issue. But it's 3 to 4% of our population, and transgenders are like what, 1/10 of 1%. I mean, and now they're going to be on every single storyline, every single show. You see a Republican on a show, and they are always the bad evil,
guy. Oh, sure.
Bigoted,
poison in the water.
And it's what if you don't realize it. It starts getting into your psyche. You start believing, even if you're a Republican, that they're all old white people out of touch with everyone, and they hate everyone, and they're all rich and all that good stuff going on. You start looking at men who are married to these strong women who beat down the men all the time. They're pussifying our men on every single show, and it starts to become like normal.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's the plan.
What's happening. And then on top of it, our education system. So just kind of, I know I went off track here, but it brings it back to your point. How did we get this dumb? This is how we get this dumb. And we don't even realize it's happening.
Purna P. Lai, an Indian guy of UC Berkeley's, listen to this department, of UC Berkeley's Undocumented Student Center, took to Twitter in the aftermath of the Charlottesville chaos to argue that white Americans are the original Nazis. And right before that, he said, don't forget, you couldn't appease the Nazis. They had to be taken out by force. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, these Antifa people, they might have to be taken out by force, too. So,
they are going to be. And praise God to who was it in North Carolina that arrested those people for toppling those statues?
Exactly.
Until these people are held accountable and start spending some time in jail and are fined and, for what they're doing, have some consequences to what they're doing, this is going to continue.
Unfortunately, there was a truck ramming terror plowed into a crowded Barcelona tourist spot. Update, the Islamic State claims responsibility, 13 dead, 100 injured. I'm not going to cover too much about that. That's a normal thing, and the people in Europe ought to be prepared for it because they did it to themselves. Now, we have a Missouri state senator on Facebook saying, I hope Trump is assassinated. Missouri state senator said in a now deleted Facebook post that she hopes President Donald Trump is assassinated. Maria Chappelle Nadal acknowledged on Thursday. She wrote the post which read, I hope Trump is assassinated. And then the people in Missouri, some different congresswomen and things, told her that she should resign. And she's like, oh, hells no, I'm not resigning. So she's, this is where we are, Stacey. This is where we are.
I mean, and can you believe it? There is a senator from Hawaii, too, who's saying Trump is not my president. Then you know what? You need to resign. You need to resign then. If you can speak like that, he is your president. Stop being so disrespectful of the office. And this woman should be investigated by the Secret Service, and she needs to resign. I was glad to see
that's a felony. That's a 5-year felony.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I was surprised, quite frankly, that Senator Claire McCaskill said that the comments were outrageous and that she should resign. So at least you are getting some semblance of less crazy from some of our elected officials. This is absolutely unacceptable, and she should have to resign. I'm sorry, she should. I'm not a big fan of trying to quelch people, for speaking what they feel, but that's a felony.
Yeah, you're not allowed.
She needs to be done.
You're not allowed to threaten the President of the United States. It's a federal offense, as well it should be. But, the thing is you can see what's happening. You can see what's happening. The Democrats and the Democrats that happen to be in the Republican Party, their communist masks are starting to get put on. They're taking off their American masks. They're putting on their communist mask. And I've even heard one commentator say that she hopes the generals will get together and remove the president. Let me tell you something, communists. Everybody that's in the United States military right now that's been in for any amount of time was in the Cold War. And you're not going to get the United States military to side with communists. If it goes that way, you're going to be on the losing end.
Actually, I think it was Chelsea Handler who put that brilliant tweet out. And it cracks me up because I'm like, you really are a moron. Not only did they live through that, Hutch, but they love this guy.
Yes, we did. And yes, we did.
The last guy. The majority of them did.
It was along racial lines, believe it or not. But that's pretty much true. The thing about Trump is they can see it's in their best interests. He wants to get out of Afghanistan. There's serious talks of that, of privatizing that operation. But yeah, it's not going to work out. These people are that stupid. And you know what really surprises me, in a way, is how stupid the Republicans are. These people are they're committing suicide.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are.
Every time you get up and talk against the president, the people in your district elected Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. They didn't vote for you.
They are so... They're like battered housewives, you know. I believe that half of it is the battered housewife situation, because none of them could withstand the onslaught that he's withstanding right now for coming out and speaking the truth. There was violence on each side. Violence is not okay just because you disagree with someone's opinion. And it's okay to say that. It's also okay to say that there were fine people there on both sides. If there were people at the rally with the Unite the Right who happened to be there because they actually don't think we should be erasing history, there's nothing wrong with that. They don't have to be Nazis to have participated in that. And that's what the guy was saying. And there were probably some fine people on the left, some stupid kids. Well, maybe not so. But, you know, I would attend a rally against Nazis and white supremacists, you know, because I don't believe in that. So there were fine people on that side. But there were some real bad actors on both sides. And not one of those Republicans could stand up to the onslaught that he is receiving and has received since day one, because they're wusses. But they're also used to being beat down by the press over and over and giving up and doing nothing. And the funny thing is that Trump supporters like myself I was applauding. You go, Trump.
So was I.
Go. Give it to him harder.
And what's
Charles
Krauthammer comes up and goes against Laura Ingraham and says it was a moral disaster. And I'm thinking, Charles, you're so last year.
Oh my God! They all are. They are in. One of my friends on Twitter, Mary, you know, tweeted something to me about, you know, Chuck Todd and Jake Tapper and all of them. Like, do they realize that they're ripping this country apart? I'm like, no, they don't.
They don't.
Neither do a lot of the Republicans. They are in that bubble. They all agree.
They're talking to each other.
They all don't want anything to change. So they dig in and they continue to do as they're going to do, while the rest of us are sick of business as usual up there.
Absolutely. We need some regular people, and these politicians have to go. I mean, Pat Toomey, where are you, man? I haven't heard you come out in support of our president, Pat. Pennsylvania went for Trump, Pat.
Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you what, I do, you know, I applaud. Let's give Donald Trump another round of applause, too, for doing as we have suggested on this show and Wayne Show. Use your bully pulpit. He came out against Jeff Flake in support of Kelly Ward. Yes, sir. Continue to do that. Go after every one of them with your bully pulpit, because they don't have your back.
That's absolutely right. And they're never going to.
And we need to get rid of them.
They're never going to. And I've said this before, and I don't know if it's time, but I think he should at least have a meeting with the Republican leadership, maybe about 20 deep in both houses, and have a meeting, bring them up and say, all right, fellas, you got one more chance. You go out there and you support me and you support my agenda and you start protecting me, giving me a little bit of blocking out there, or I'm going to come out tomorrow morning after I talk with the generals. I'm going to come out tomorrow morning and I'm going to quit the Republican Party, and I'm going to tell everybody that follows me to quit the Republican Party too, and you people will be out on your lonely asses.
And then how about this too? Tracy from the chat room in Spreaker just reminded us that in Arizona, Trump's holding a rally next week. You go, Trump.
Yep.
You bring Kelly Ward up on stage. You give her the national platform. You watch those donations come in, and you watch Jeff Flake get the F out of D.C.
And then start working on McCain's seat. Mm-hmm. Start working on McCain's seat, because there's going to have to be a special election there pretty soon. Mm-hmm. And I don't care how disrespectful that is. David Horowitz says the real race war, the tragedy in Charlottesville, could have been an occasion to stop and consider how the tolerance for politically correct violence and politically correct hatred is leading the nation towards civil war. Instead, the media and the political left and right have turned this incident into the biggest fake news story of the summer, transforming its real lessons into a morality play that justifies war against the political right and against white people generally. Bad move, Stacey.
Mm-hmm. It is absolutely the wrong move. And again, they don't see it. Here you have people on record defending Antifa defending Black Lives Matter with all the violence that they've perpetrated, and they will continue to perpetrate more. So let's just keep on keeping on and keep going down this route.
Yeah, I mean, Mitt Romney, Marco Rubio, all these guys. Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell came off vacation to put his 2 cents in. The organizers of the Unite the Right demonstration in Charlottesville were repellent racists, but they came to defend a historic monument honoring a complex man and cause, and not to attack it or presumably anyone else. They applied for a permit and were denied. They reapplied successfully in a petition supported by the local ACLU. If they had come to precipitate violence, why would they have gone to the tedious trouble of applying for a permit? Who knows what, if anything, would have happened if that had been the end of the story and no one had shown up to oppose them. What Unite the Right actually demonstrated was that the assortment of neo-Nazis, neo-Confederates, and assorted yahoos gathered under the banner of the alt-right is actually a negligible group. Mm-hmm. This was a national show of strength that attracted a couple hundred people. And that's the thing that I say. Over my lifetime, I've seen several white supremacist organizations on various television venues and things like that, and they're 3 people or 4 people. I mean, and they're not the sharpest knives in the drawer. This is a fake news story 100%.
It is. It was completely ginned up, and you compare that to the tens of thousands who can readily be marshaled by 2 violent groups of the left, Black Lives Matter and Antifa, and you get an idea of just how marginal the white supremacists are compared to the American political and cultural life.
Yeah, and now if you took those buses away, there wouldn't be that many of them. They're getting paid and everything else. 412-567-1460. Man, time flies when you're having fun. But let's talk corporate Antifa. The CEO's revolt against American democracy. All these leaders of corporate America were on the president's CEO councils. There was one CEO council and another infrastructure council. And as soon as they got the chance, buddy, they all bailed out. And they're blaming it on Antifa and on this racist fake news story. But I don't believe it for a minute. They never wanted to be on it in the first place. You have Richard Trump.
That's the thing I was going to ask you about as well, and then also highlighted in this story is I don't get it, Hutch. Is it simply, are these the people who are making a lot of money through, cheap labor overseas?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, Merck, I think they make some of their drugs in Ireland. They're all multinational. And they know. I'll give you a perfect example, and I've said it before on the show. Where I work, there is a landscaping crew. And up until this year, it was 6 to 8 Mexicans, full-grown, middle-aged men and women, mostly men. I'm not talking 18-year-olds here. I'm talking like this is their real job. 6 to 8 of them. When Trump got elected, all of a sudden it's 3 teenagers, 3 American teenagers. So those teenagers are making minimum wage. You can only imagine what those Mexicans were getting paid. Because it's all economics.
And you need to talk to them and ask them about that, or find out who the boss is and see what the deal was, And
this is going to happen in every industry. This is going to happen in the whole economy. And other countries are going to have to pay their way. Let's talk about it a little bit. Let's talk about NAFTA Day 1 Recap. This is by Sundance from Conservative Treehouse. Based entirely on what can be pulled from government accounts and media interviews of the participants involved in NAFTA negotiations, I'm going to try and summarize each day as it can be determined through those sources. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the biggest story of the world, short of a war, and nobody's talking about it except here. Additionally, for those who might be interested in a perspective, I'm going to give a rating of my confidence that a tri-national agreement is possible on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 is NAFTA will dissolve and parties will be at irreconcilable differences, and 10 is confidence in that an agreement will be reached at the end of day 1 today. I'd assess the likelihood of an agreement at 3. Outlook not so good. Canada, as expressed by Foreign Minister Chrystia Freeland, appears determined to use NAFTA as a tool for Justin Trudeau's social justice endeavors. Gay rights, transgender rights, cultural sensitivity, and climate change are at the very top of their priority list. Further down the scale are rules on conflict resolution and rules of origin. Mexico's position appears to be a unity move to align with Canada on mutual ideology in an effort to leverage the status quo, also the default position of Canada. Mexican trade officials are exceptionally complimentary toward Canada's Chrystia Freeland and openly divisive toward U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer. Given the history here, Mexico appears to have no intention on complying with a trade agreement, even if one is determined. Mexico appears intent to simply factor the cost of compliance litigation into their economic and manufacturing equations. Combined, Mexico and Canada are putting up a unified front, and the United States trade team is presenting optical and verbal cues akin to eye rolls. It would appear Canada and Mexico also understand the U.S. Trump no-lose position is to scrap the deal, and so Canada and Mexico are leveraging themselves politically to try and force responsibility for fracture and failure onto Team USA. And you can get the full PDF of Lighthizer's goals if you go to the show notes links and go to this site. The first round of 6 negotiations are scheduled to last 5 days, ending Sunday. However, if day 2 through 4 are anything like day 1, I wouldn't bet on seeing round 2. One of the more germane points of difference, something that actually has to do with trade, encompasses the rules of origin. This is important, specifically within the auto sector. Currently, China ships a massive amount of Chinese manufactured component parts into both Canada and Mexico. Those parts are then assembled and shipped into the U.S. This process subverts the intent of NAFTA in that the agreement for manufacturing is supposed to encompass products actually manufactured within North America, as in manufactured within Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. The entire premise for free trade among the 3 North American nations is that products generated by and manufactured by the NAFTA partners would be duty-free. China has essentially subverted U.S. trade tariffs within the auto sector by using Mexico mainly as a destination for auto parts that are then merely assembled and shipped into the U.S. duty-free. If the end product came from China directly, they would have to potentially pay an import tax as part of the U.S.-China trade agreement. And you can go on and check the rest of it out, but you can see we're getting hosed. And these people are not going to let us get hosed. And all the multi-global people like Ford, GM that are making millions because the parts are half price from China and they're not paying any taxes on them, and Canada and Mexico are getting paid with no duty. It's got to stop, and it will.
It does have to stop, and that I tell you what, I was completely unaware of this. You know, like we've always said, you've got to concentrate on what your strengths are, and this one is not mine. But reading through it, and I'm going to be checking out Sundance every day to get this summary, because he's able to put it in, in wording that's easy to understand for people who don't, specialize in trade. And I got to tell you, I was completely shocked that we allow this to occur and we don't do anything about it.
And everybody's in the game, Stacey. That's the most important thing. Everybody that is arrayed against Trump is getting paid by this apparatus. Not necessarily the auto companies, but I'm saying the media companies are globalist. Almost every company is globalist right now. And what it's done, it's made a massive, what do they call it, when they move money around
just like a money laundering type of.
Yeah, but it's the transfer of wealth. When they move it, it's always thought of that it goes from the rich to the poor, and that's true, but it's not in America. The money is transferred out of America to the east,
to these other countries, and they have no intent on giving it back. And it's time that we have somebody who stands up, and that is what Trump is doing. And that is why I get so shocked by the frickin' Republican Party and how they cannot stand up for this kind of thing. I just don't get it.
No, but I do know why. Because the people that are paying the Republicans are called the big club. And if you go to the conservative triage, you'll see what that is. It's all these people that are lined up with the Commonwealth, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and things of that nature. And they're so powerful because they run these people. I mean, they virtually tell them what to do. And you can almost predict what they're going to say and what they're going to do by what the Chamber's stance is. 662, what's your name and where are you calling from?
This is Jim Hutch. How you doing?
Oh, Mississippi Jim, what's going on?
I'm just wanting to tell you and Stacy, I'm encouraged. I really am. If he can just hang in there, and I think he will, because he's a fighter. If he can get this tax thing done and get more jobs, like that's all he's been saying, more jobs and more jobs, you're gonna have a lot of people that are gonna be tickled to death, and you're gonna have a lot of people. Of course, this is my opinion, but you're gonna have a lot of people that are they're not going to be involved in all this, confusion and being upset and wanting to raise Cain, because they're going to be getting a paycheck. I mean, the guy knows exactly what he's doing, but he's battling so hard. I mean, people don't realize, and there are so many people that have no idea what's going on. But I tell you what, I just love the way the guy goes after stuff. And, oh, by the way, remember before the election what he said about McCain?
About the POW status?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I agree with him 100%.
I do too now. Back then I didn't really take it either way. I didn't worry about it. I just thought maybe he misspoke or whatever. But now, and based on what I've heard you say in the past, and based on what I've seen about what McCain's been involved in recently, and the fact that he did what he did, you're talking about a low blow, and that where he just made a fool of himself, in that vote.
Yeah.
Came out there and put his thumb down like that.
And when Mississippi Jim, when you say that too, that's one thing I picked up on in the presser that I wondered about. I have a feeling that John McCain said he was going to vote for it to move to committee, and then he didn't do it. That was the impression that I got from what Trump said at the press conference.
They said there was a gasp in the room that you could hear.
He told Trump that he was going to vote for it, and then he didn't.
And then he didn't do it. That's.
Oh yeah, they never go to him. They never
came on stage. He came on stage to take that final vote too. That was like it was staged. I mean, there he walks in. I mean, I watched that and I saw him walk in. I thought, well, he's fixing to vote against it, and he sure did. And then he walked away. And of course, those Democrats, they couldn't help themselves. They were excited and all that kind of stuff. But he's sorry, man. I'm telling you, I hate to say it, but he is.
Oh, I don't hate to say it. He's a monster. If the stuff he's done in his past.
Butch, I'm sorry.
That's all right. The stuff he's done in his past, what he did to those families of MIAs and POWs, when him and John Kerry shut that down and wouldn't let those become unclassified, the war was over and everything. The only thing he did was try to protect himself, because he knows what's in there about him in those documents about MIAs and POWs.
In the Songbird thing, I probably had heard that term before, but I had never paid really attention to it until I started listening to y'all, and that deal. And then the fact, people forget that he got pardoned by, who was president then? Was that, I forget who it was. But he got pardoned, because he spoke, I guess, because he,
They said he made tapes and everything.
The deal is he always says he could have, or they say he could have come home, and he didn't. But I wonder, what did he actually do in the war besides getting caught?
He was a pilot. He was a Navy pilot. I mean,
I know that.
He almost caused the aircraft carrier. I forget which one it was, but there was a big fire on an aircraft carrier, and his plane was involved in it. Rockets came off the side of the plane, but his biggest thing, when I saw back in the 90s, I got to let you go here in a second, but back in the 90s, when I first started listening to Rush Limbaugh, there was a congressman out of California, Bob Dornan. They called him B1 Bob. And Bob Dornan's the one that told me the story about McCain. Bob Dornan and Senator Smith, I think his name was, were on the various committees in the House and Senate. And they're the ones that came out with this documentary and said this guy was dirty, But hey, thanks for calling, Jim. I appreciate it. Call back anytime.
Okay, good to talk to you guys. Stacy, bye-bye.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, that's Jim from Mississippi, one of our loyal listeners. Thanks for calling, sir. Now the final story tonight. Representative Rohrabacher says Julian Assange could be pardoned for information about DNC leak source. This is from the Daily Caller and Alex Pfeiffer, who is their White House correspondent. California Republican Representative Dana Rohrabacher met with WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange Wednesday in an effort to obtain information about the source of a leak of Democrat officials' emails. Rohrabacher told the Daily Caller in an exclusive interview Thursday that Assange is hoping to leave the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where he is currently in asylum, and that during the meeting they explored what might be necessary to get him out. And I'll tell you, Stacey, they better put him in the witness protection program.
Yeah, because he ain't going to last long if he gets out of there. I mean, I'm surprised he's lasted as long as he has.
I am too. I really am.
But I think it would be interesting, if he does that, this will be a difficult decision, I think, for Julian Assange, because unless he's not going to identify who the person or persons are who actually gave it, but that he can show that it didn't, originate in Russia,
I think
without
some
giving away the
people.
Identities, because his biggest important thing to him that he holds dear is that he keeps his sources private.
But what if it's Seth Rich? Would that apply?
Well, if it's Seth Rich, it wouldn't apply. I have contacts within the hacker community, and I can't say that this is true, but multiple sources there have said that it is not Seth Rich, that's not who it is. And you have to remember that we're talking about two different things. The DNC could have been, let's say it could have been Seth Rich, right? Let's just throw that out there. But the DNC documents were not given to WikiLeaks to post.
Okay.
They weren't WikiLeaks email dump. They were distributed through other means, and then you had the Podesta emails that were obviously very devastating. But they're two separate entities and two separate things that occurred. So I'm not saying that Seth Rich was not a person involved in the DNC portion of it, and maybe Julian knows that information. Maybe because it is kind of a close knit type of situation, but. I've been told by a couple of folks that Seth Rich was not involved in either of the DNC hack nor the Podesta hack, or the Podesta kind of phishing scam. But I could be wrong. Those people could be either completely misinformed or, sending me misinformation. I don't know. I feel like Julian can give a lot of information. I think there are a couple of other people out there who probably can give information about where this came from, but it'll be interesting to me if it is Seth Rich. Then I think Julian obviously would be okay with giving that information out, but again, I see those as two separate things,
right?
And I could be, and again, I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but I see those as two separate situations.
Wasn't there a story that just came out? Wasn't there a story that just came out that some FBI type forensic investigators have determined that it was definitely not a hack, and it was definitely a leak? I remember seeing something about that the last day or two.
Yeah, there has been a story about that where there's a lot of forensic evidence, it looks like. And here's something you have to remember, too. And the point I think that they bring up that is most important is, the CIA, they look for things such as big uploads or big transfers of data from various key important entities, whether it be large businesses, whether it be the DNC or the RNC. So if they notice that a ton of data was being taken from a DNC server from Russia, the CIA would know that. They would know that. Yeah,
no doubt. The problem with the CIA and every agency in Washington is that Washington went 95% for Hillary Clinton. I think they should move the Capitol.
But the point being is it leads credence to what these people are saying that they found through the forensic documents by looking at documents from the DNC hack.
Yeah.
Is that it looks like that there was so much information that was taken that it would have been impossible, based on the types of servers and the type of internet speed we have, to have been able to take those documents in the way that they're saying that there were, that it's physically impossible at this moment in time, that it sounds like it was a local deal, that it was somebody who had access to the servers.
I just pray that the truth comes out, whatever that means, about all of this stuff. I mean, you notice that the thing that's so obvious to me is every time a story dies, a new one's born. You notice not a doggone person's talking about Russia anymore.
No, they are not.
And they have a special prosecutor that the FBI investigator left the team yesterday.
Absolutely. And it's interesting to me, too, that this story came out that got relatively no coverage, and that you had someone from the Trump campaign team trying to set up meetings between Russian government officials, even all the way up to Putin. And the whole team was like, no, we're not doing that. Hello?
Yeah.
There was no Russian collusion.
How about that? You know, people ought to pay for that, though. I mean, there ought to be some kind of price that people pay. Why do we accept this mediocre, fake propaganda-based media? Where's the FCC? You know what I mean? This is something that we can't survive with this.
No, we can't.
There's too many dumb people. And when I say dumb, I know that sounds wrong. There's too many preoccupied people that are trying to make a living.
And you know, a free press it's necessary to keep a check on government, but they have become partners with the government. With one side of the government, and now really the majority of the government, because the Republicans who have been there for a while are so entrenched as well.
Oh, yeah.
There's really not that much of a difference, and there is so much corruption there. Oh my God, you could become the next Woodward and Bernstein if you do your freaking job, because there is a scandal on every corner in D.C., for frick's sake, but we don't have a media who will actually do the work.
And a Republican politician with a little bit of guts could go out there and be a hero right now. If you had 5 or 6 of them that would come out and defend this guy, the guy's telling the truth. Doesn't that mean anything to you? The truth is going to come out in the end, folks. Hey, we're out of time. Stacey, how can people get in touch with you on social media?
You guys can reach me easiest on Twitter at DiscoveringMe40, or you can type in Benghazi Stacey and find me that way. And I'm the Right Rush on Gab, and it was a pleasure as always. I hope everyone has a great remainder of the week and weekend. All
right, thanks, Stacey, and we'll see you Tuesday for the 500 show.
That's right.
7 to 9, ladies and gentlemen. Norway will be there. Jack will be there. We'll get some other people in there, maybe some surprise guests. I want to thank the people in the chat room. I'm seeing some new names in there. That's good. I appreciate that. Please share the show. That's the most important thing. Second most important thing is become a Cold War Radio patron at SteelCityResistance.com, or go direct at patreon.com/Charlie Whiskey Romeo, patriot.com/CWR. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr., ladies and gentlemen, on Facebook, Berg's Eye View on Twitter. Off to the Wayne Dupree studios next. Thanks for letting us into your life for 1 hour. God bless.